Have you ever wondered whether adding the salt at the beginning or at the end of the hand kneading process makes a difference? Follow along, and let's find out. Welcome back. In today's video, I'll bake two recipes using the same ingredients to see how slight changes, like the timing of salt addition, can affect the dough-making process. For both recipes, I'll use 345 grams of Caputo Cuoco flour, 215 grams of water, 10 grams of salt, and 0.12 grams of active dry yeast. Let's start with the first recipe. I've already measured out the ingredients and placed them in the fridge to cool down slightly. This time, I won't use icy water. For this recipe, I combined the flour and yeast and started mixing them with a hand mixer while gradually adding the water. I kept a small amount of water aside to help incorporate the salt later. Once the dough temperature reached 23 degrees Celsius, I added the salt and the remaining water and finished kneading when the dough reached 25 degrees Celsius. Then, I let the dough rest for 20 minutes before laminating it. After another 30-minute rest, I balled it up, placed it into a container, and covered it to proof at room temperature until baking tomorrow. While you watch me work, let me share a few insights from Zoltan Mayer, a seasoned pizzaiolo. When it comes to pizza baking the traditional way in Naples, everything starts with water. Hand-kneaded pizza dough there is quite different from what we're generally used to. In Naples, there's no such thing as kneading dough with a fixed amount like 1 kilogram of flour. Instead, the basic unit of measurement is 1 liter of water. The salt, typically 3%, and yeast are calculated based on this, and the flour is added as needed, depending on the humidity and temperature on that particular day. First, the salt is dissolved in the water, then the yeast, and finally, the flour is gradually added. The process transitions from a soft, almost liquid consistency toward lower hydration, unlike bread making, for example. It's crucial to ensure the dough doesn't overheat during kneading, as its temperature should not exceed 26 to 27 degrees Celsius. Kneading time should also be kept under 20 minutes. By the end, the dough should have a soft yet well-structured, non-sticky texture. This consistency is essential for properly shaping dough balls, stretching, and handling the dough later. Contrary to popular belief, kneading good dough is not easy. It's no coincidence that in the best Neapolitan pizzerias, the most experienced person, the so-called primo pizzaiolo, is the one responsible for kneading. They say anyone can slap a pizza together, but a good kneader is worth their weight in gold. In Naples, during the first week, trainees knead everything by hand. Once they've developed a feel for how the dough should turn out, they start practicing with a machine to replicate the same results. Now back to the recipe. As you can see, the dough is a bit soft and sticky, but during lamination, it looked strong enough to handle. By using icy water, you have more time to build a strong gluten mesh. With almost room temperature water, the kneading process, and the warmth from your hands, can cause the dough to warm up before the ingredients are properly incorporated. Let's see the second recipe. For this, I dissolved the salt in warm water and then let it cool down a bit in the fridge. First, I poured all the salty water into the bowl, added the yeast, and then gradually incorporated the flour during mixing. So, while in the first recipe I added the water to the flour, this time I'm adding the flour to the water. Adding the salt at the end of the process helps with dough hydration and ensures a smoother texture, but this method is mainly suited for spiral mixers, as they provide consistent kneading and better incorporation of ingredients. For hand mixing, however, the traditional method, dissolving the salt in water first, might be a better choice. Why? When you knead by hand, starting with salt already dissolved in the water makes it easier to distribute evenly throughout the dough, ensuring uniform hydration from the very beginning. It's a method perfected over generations in Naples, where hand kneading has been elevated to an art form. So, while adding salt at the end is effective for modern equipment, the traditional method remains tried and true for those who prefer to work by hand. During the lamination and balling, the dough felt noticeably stronger compared to the first recipe, even though the amounts of ingredients were exactly the same. This difference highlights how the method of incorporating ingredients can significantly impact the dough's structure and strength. Now it's time to see the two doughs side by side after 23 hours of proofing at room temperature. As you can see, the first one barely holds any structure. It spreads out like a puddle. In contrast, the second dough looks tight and well fermented, with a noticeably stronger shape and structure. After removing it from the tray, shaping a pizza from such a soft dough proved quite challenging. The dough was difficult to handle, lacking elasticity and stretching under its own weight. No slapping or extra stretching was needed. After adding the toppings, I somehow managed to get it onto the peel, made a few adjustments, and carefully placed it in the oven. Once in the oven, the crust rose beautifully, and the baking looked surprisingly good. However, the bottom was very weak, and during turning, the peel tore a hole in it. Even with the extra hole and being slightly underbaked, the pizza still turned out unexpectedly tasty. I'm not revealing any big secret when I say this one turned out really well. The dough had the perfect consistency. It stretched easily while maintaining enough elasticity and strength to make the entire process seamless. From taking it out and shaping the middle to slapping it a few times, adding the toppings, transferring it onto the peel, and baking it for 1.5 minutes, everything went flawlessly. I hope this test clearly illustrated how even small changes in the dough-making process can significantly impact the final results. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more content like this. Got questions or suggestions? Drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.